So nice to see you. I would like to start from a bit of introduction. It was already done, but I want to go a bit deeper probably, so that everyone here has a better understanding why we are here to talk about what we are here to talk about. And because I think that it's actually a great, maybe small, but great crowd to talk about this topic, having a very deep understanding of the topic itself and having the practical experience, right, to share. I would start from Vittorio, and so Vittorio studied architecture and earned his PhD in mass timber building from the Technical University of Vienna, and currently he is a business development manager at CREE Buildings. So CREE Buildings is an international construction collective for regenerative building solutions, and there he oversees actually all the partnerships and new projects for CREE. So nice to have you here.
Thank you. Nice. Thank you for the invitation.
So Micheil Gordon is a co-founder and CTO at ecoLocked, and Micheil is an environmental scientist and mechanical engineer with significant research and industrial experience. So as a co-founder and CTO of ecoLocked for the past 2 years, Micheil is now working on technical innovations that create value from biochar to support the transition towards the low carbon society. Welcome. And Adam, nice to have you here. So Adam is the project manager at Bioreco, and Adam is a carbon removal specialist in the CDR industry and project manager at the Bioreco. The company is actually working with the initiation, development, and technological deployment, right, of the projects and plants built on the bioenergy with carbon capture and storage, and that's, I think, a very great addition to our topic today, right? This type of technology is a powerful tool in the fight against the climate change, right? So let us then go start from our some questions that we discussed prior to the meeting, but I think that we will make it rather free and informal, and we'll be happy to hear your questions after we discuss some of the topics that we've come up with. So it's clear that decarbonization in the built environment is a really important and kind of pressing topic, right? I want, as we need to understand what are the technologies that could help us to solve this issue, maybe you could tell us more about how actually carbon capture and storage technology be effectively integrated into environmental build and how it can be helpful in the construction. So Vittorio, I see that you had the microphone, so I think you could...
I stole it from you.
Okay, that's fine. So, but we will have, all of us will have the opportunity to share, so welcome.
So in the process, the concrete industry decarbonized 100%. Our company introduced mass timber, so structural timber elements for the structure of the building. And we do it together with concrete. Concrete is a great material, we have no problem to say that, but we team up, let's say, these two materials together. And we built more than 25 buildings all over the world, and we are pretty keen on controlling, okay, how much CO2 we reduce through the structure of our buildings. And of course, mass timber helps, but is not the only solution. You need to be also very fast in the delivery of the building, so you reduce construction time, waste, and so on. And of course, you need to also think about how the building is going to operate. Because we can, of course, build a perfect building, sustainable in every material, but then if it is built bad or not properly, then it wastes energy in the operational cost. And so what I saw in my experience as business development is that this is, the material of the building is only the beginning, but it's important to see the building in a holistic way. So also in the 50 years long period of time, they usually run. And again, I think some of the technology of that the other speakers could definitely help in this regard.
Okay, thank you. So that the holistic approach, right?
Yes.
That, I think that that's a good idea to keep. Thank you, Vittorio, for sharing. Yeah.
No, I think I can give you this.
That's okay. Oh.
Thank you, Vittorio. Actually, it's great to hear that you're pushing the timber use in construction, because actually is really no better use for storing carbon in construction with the use of timber. But as you say, you can't get rid of all the concrete. And that's where ecoLocked, our startup, comes in, because what we are innovating with is solutions to decarbonize that final construction material that we need. We cannot get around, at least for foundations and for, at the moment, very high-rise construction projects, concrete will remain integral to those developments. So what we're doing with our startup at ecoLocked is we're combining then carbon storage, carbon reduction, and carbon utilization. So we take carbon removal and we actually functionalize that material. So we're using a material called biochar, biocarbon, that has intrinsic negative emissions. And what we do is we then develop functional concrete admix materials which can bring that carbon neutral concrete solution to our customers while at the same time providing functional benefits. And that's where our solution can be stacked with such other projects. And actually, speaking about concrete, yes, we know it is responsible for 7 to 8% of global CO2 emissions. This is huge. And we need such startups and innovations to bring that down. However, what it should be said is concrete is already sequestering carbon. So yes, it releases a huge amount in its production. But during its lifetime, it actually also absorbs CO2. So over 100 years, the concrete can actually absorb 20 to 30% of the original emissions that were released during limestone calcination. And what we can do with our technology is actually increase the CO2 absorption capacity of that concrete by up to 150% actually. So you already have a concrete which is a potential carbon sink, and what we're doing with our technology is enhancing that functionality, bringing a carbon neutral solution to the market, while at the same time bringing more functional improvements such as insulation, lightweight, curing acceleration, and durability.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
I would just add to that. I mean, as part of the carbon removal industry, what we do at Bioreco is we develop bioenergy with carbon capture and storage projects. And right now we are developing around 12 facilities that could have the capacity to remove over 6.5 million tons of CO2 from the atmosphere per year. I think it's nice to have a colleague in the carbon removal space in this conversation. I think it's super important to sort of really push this. And I think the main thing that's really interesting about BECCS is that what we actually do is we look for where already existing biogenic CO2 sources are being emitted and look to install carbon capture on these facilities. So this, for example, could be like a pulp and paper mill, a combined heat and power facility, a waste energy facility, already existing industries that we can then kind of low-hanging fruit capture the CO2 and make a carbon removal product out of that.
Interesting. So we've mentioned the carbon capture and storage solution, right? And how do you see this actually it's evolving? And what are the challenges and what is the potential?
On the policy side, I think it's our sort of golden token is the 45Q tax credit in the U.S. Right now in the US, if you are capturing and storing CO2, you can get $85 per ton for every ton of CO2 that you store. This is a really exciting opportunity for project developers because you can know and expect exactly what amount of money to receive for the ton of CO2 that you're capturing. But there's also really exciting opportunities coming up on sort of the EU side as well, both with reverse auction systems in Sweden, as well as regulatory incentives in the UK and Denmark as well. So I think policy can definitely play a major part in supporting these ecosystems, and mostly in the sense that you know exactly sort of the revenue streams that you can expect by doing a carbon removal project, and that's what we find really exciting at Bioreco.
Michael, I saw you, yes.
Is it me? Okay.
Sorry.
So what we saw, we operate in 15 countries all over the world, and for example, we fight to propose our solution to clients and city councils. What I think is very important, what happened in Canada, because in Canada we propose our solution. It's a very sustainable building, as I say, in a holistic way. And the client that is going to keep the building for 50 years, the famous 50 years, got access to a lower rate interest from the bank. Why? Because the city create a law or a setup for that client to have this kind of reduction if he develop a sustainable building, sustainable with some characteristic, not only like greenwashing approach, but really like from a structure, from how the building operates. And I think these are the direction where the policies should go. So really, okay, we all know the interest rates are high right now, but what if we find solutions for sustainable buildings to have that interest rate lowered, for example? We're talking about millions. We're talking about a 100 million project that has an interest rate reduced of 1.5%. So this could be a good solution for that.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Yeah, actually, some good news. Yesterday, we just noticed that the certification framework for carbon removal was approved on an EU level. And so this is a great shift in the right direction towards demystification of the carbon removal market and ensuring that we actually don't fall foul of greenwashing, which has been a problem for at least for us to project transparency and why carbon removal is so important, and to build that confidence to scale carbon removal confidently. Another policy that I think could really shift this area in leaps and bounds would be the integration and the ETS system that we currently have to cap and reduce emissions on the heavy emitting industries with the voluntary carbon market. And with that, I know it's in discussion and it's probably a long way off, but that kind of acceleration for those type of policies would have a huge impact not only on the difficult to abate emission sectors, but for us as well as startups, it would significantly accelerate our ability to access markets and bring our technology to our customers.
And in terms, so we mentioned that the policy and how it could be a kind of a catalyst, right, for this, the acceleration and the move forward. But also probably you see how the public and private sector could collaborate, what kind of initiatives could be, launched so that it's even, better and more efficient kind of collaboration. Yeah, Michael, continue. We'll then do the round deck.
I think for us, a huge one is the introduction of green public procurement. And so we see these initiatives emerging across certain, I know in the Nordics, in the Netherlands there's a big drive. There's some in Germany, in the States as well. And what we see is, especially what we notice in the Netherlands, is that when you have these green public procurement initiatives that, in fact, actually the public sector, when we're speaking about concrete, is responsible for 40 to 60% of the sale of concrete. So they own they're responsible for the procurement of a huge percentage of the concrete market. And so there's a great opportunity there to drive that decarbonization and incentivize it. So we see those initiatives, and that is in combination with the public and private sectors, so that when we start to bring our technology, we have a level playing field, and we can access some of those public projects and bring carbon neutral and climate friendly concrete solutions into the public sector.
Thank you.
I would just say as well, what private companies can do right now is actually commit to carbon removal suppliers. I think if you look at, for example, the Frontier Fund that's come out of Silicon Valley, this is a $1 billion advanced market commitment to purchase carbon removal. And this is from a consortium of companies like Facebook, Meta, McKinsey & Company, Stripe, Shopify, really sort of pushing the industry forward by committing to the early stage carbon removal suppliers right now. In addition, Microsoft has also launched a $1 billion fund to purchase carbon removal, and you can see this with their most recent announcement to purchase BECCS with the Microsoft Ørsted deal in Denmark. So I think private companies can really push this forward on their own, and then in combination with the regulated incentives is sort of that's our sweet spot. It's trying to kind of combine both the voluntary carbon market and also the regulated incentives that can really make these projects super profitable and then really push the envelope forward.
Those funds is exactly what I wanted to say. Like, we are seeing financing project like our that we do is very hard through banks. And so we are seeing, especially in the last 2-3 years, a massive interest of big funds, private and public, or private funds that are the vehicle for public funding. And I think they're going towards the right direction. I also like that sometimes the private anticipates a little bit what the public should do. They're more courageous, I would say, brave. But at the same time, they're not, I mean, we're talking about technologies that are not like 1 year, 2 years old, so they're established. And I really think what we struggle in the sustainability construction sector to align all the technology all together in the right building. Sometimes there is only one technology, sometimes there is another one. And I think those funds are now trying to do that kind of job.
And also, we discussed what is happening, and will improve actually the journey for the companies like yours, and for the clients it will be more kind of interesting and clear why to use such solutions. But what are the risks and problems that you see, anticipate, and you think that should be addressed by public, private sector, by the technology companies like yours?
I can tell you what a challenge for us is knowledge. So we can propose our technology in various countries, but not always there are, in our case, architects, engineers are capable to handle such technology or solutions. I have the example of France. France is doing an amazing job in promoting sustainable buildings. They oblige to have 30-40% of mass timber load-bearing structure in their buildings, and that's amazing. But sometimes architects and engineers struggle to deliver such building in the best, efficient, and sustainable way, because there was not such a huge amount of knowledge transfer from producers, from experienced people, and so on. So, of course, financing that's always important, but I think that we also need to train the people that make decisions, or people that have an influence on the process of the building. What are the right solutions? What are the technology, maybe the details and so on to optimize the building? So, mass timber is a great material, but I don't think it's right to put as much timber as possible, but it's right to use it as in the right quantities. Because the goal is to build a lot of hybrid timber buildings and not few only mass timber buildings, in my opinion.
Thank you. Micheil?
Yeah, if we're speaking about concrete, then what we see is that this is a notoriously conservative market. It hasn't changed a lot in the last century. And so when you're trying to innovate in that space, it's a challenge. And one area that is really challenging for us is the whole area around certification and building confidence in bringing new materials to the market and to be used in a conventional way. So one area that we see that that these policy initiatives can really help is around the certification. What we see in the Netherlands is that they have something called the Innovation Certificate. And this is a way in which to bring innovative materials to the market in a short time frame at a cheaper cost. It still has, it's still certified, it still goes through the rigorous testing, but it doesn't take 2 to 3 years, which is what you find in Germany and other EU countries, before you can actually start using your product for the mass market. So for us, one of the biggest challenges is around certification.
Thank you. Adam?
I would say for us, we have lots of interest from the emitter side to do projects. We have lots of interest from the customer side to buy carbon removal or buy CO2 utilization. Our main problem right now is raising our Series A. So if you're an investor out there and you're looking to get involved in carbon removal, we would be happy to have a conversation. But right now, what we're really struggling with is sort of a chicken and egg problem. You need to have sort of the exclusivity agreements. You need to have the procurements in place. But a lot of times, you need to be well funded to do so. And at the same time, investors are asking for this rather than sort of understanding the idea that we need the investment to actually make these come forward. So we're a bit of kind of in this valley of death between what would be a typical seed stage startup and what we're trying to scale to, which would be a much bigger team to pursue these opportunities.
In terms of the investment, because I work with investors and angel investors, and I see how difficult for them sometimes is to comprehend the potential of technology, especially there are a lot of challenges on the way. So to your, what is your idea? What could be or help to shift this, interest and understanding for investors how important it is to invest in the technologies like yours, right? And how this, in long term, could be a great return for them as well, not only in terms of the impact investment, as many investors are focusing on, but also in terms of how this technology in long run will be much more efficient for the clients and to this regard profitable, right?
So from our perspective, we are technology agnostic project developers. So what we do is we really focus on putting together the financing to make a BECCS facility come to life. We would go with already established vendors, for example, like Svante or Aker or these typical carbon capture technology companies. And I think when it comes to the conversation with investors, they sort of need to have a flexibility in the mandate to kind of understand and work with these project developer models. I think for the past 10 years or so, it's been very focused on SaaS and sort of technology IP. If you don't have either of those, you're kind of an oddball in the industry right now. And I would say, from our perspective, we're kind of coming from where solar and wind was in the 90s, sort of trying to scale already existing technology to meet the demands of carbon removal today. And that's our main challenge, is trying to sort of meet the investors that would be very sort of flexible and open with kind of their idea of the business model.
Thank you. Vittorio.
So CREE developed a prefabricated system to build high-rise building 15 years ago, 12 years ago. And then we switched our business model. We were a general contractor, so we built with our system, we mastered the solution, and then we changed our business model again, and we became a technology consulting company, and we partner with construction companies all over the world. What we do is that we establish an ecosystem of supply chain around every CREE project that is built all over the world. We master also that. And what is missing for us is the demand. So we built already many projects, but for specific clients. And what we are struggling now, and that's how investors are trying to also help us and critique us, is to say, okay, where is demand for such technology? Because we operate in 15 buildings, so we build one building, 2 for each country. But we need to scale massively. And there's this idea of CREE, to scale the realization of these buildings. The advantage that we have is that there is no technology out there that can compete with us, because we have a 15 years advantage and a massive network of companies that can do that. And what we then are focusing now is to really try to speak with funds, speak with investors, and say, technology is there, the supply chain is established, let's create demand for such buildings. And what is helping, when I was talking with the gentleman from Collier before, is that these investors are trying to understand, okay, I need a new building and I need a sustainable building. And then the timber comes somehow in their years. And then comes our solution and say, do you want sustainable buildings with timber? We also use concrete and we reduce the price. And that's how we're selling that.
Okay, that's a great approach. Micheil.
For ecoLocked, I think one of the challenges when speaking to investors is, where do we fit within their current portfolio? Are we carbon removal? Are we a decarbonization cement startup? And actually what we are is we're carbon removal with carbon utilization, and that's quite a distinct difference. And we use the medium of concrete to realize that. And so for us, it's about having the openness to see the benefits of combining these two and using concrete as the means to really scale and have huge climate impact. Because we are also a hardware startup, there needs to be some understanding that we need to build assets. We are dealing with materials. And so, yeah, any investors that are open for a carbon removal and utilization startup and have some experience around assets, speak to me.
So I think we use this time efficiently. So it's clear that like accelerating the decarbonization, right, in built environment is important, crucial, and we will be moving to the question part, and I want just for you to leave one thought you think is the most important related to our topic today, that you want all of the participants here to keep with them and to leave this room with, and to probably think about, or be happy about that. So decide what you want to put a question. Do you want to put a kind of the strong claim, or you want and ask for collaboration? What's or not? Just one idea that you want to leave out there for our audience before the questions.
I can probably start. I just want to say that the buildings situation, the construction sector right now has faced challenges, and those challenges are connected with sustainability. And I think it's hard for all these three companies on the stage here to manage with this challenge, but I think that we are going towards the right direction. And I think it's a hard challenge, but I'm very confident that in 10, 15 years, the buildings, new buildings or new facilities would be much better than they will be compared to 15 years ago. And I think that's gives me hope.
Thank you. Adam? Michael.
I think for me, it would be a sense of urgency. We are hurtling towards the various tipping points, and innovating in this sector is tough. And so to feel that sense of urgency is the most important for me, and to leave with that thought. We have to act now. We need all the solutions out there. It's not our solution. It's clear that all of us have something to offer. We need to stack these technologies, and that's really the importance for me.
Thank you.
I would say in the carbon removal space, if you're an investor in this, like my ask is that you really follow the science. The IPCC is very clear about which carbon removal technologies are in existence and which are needed to mitigate climate change. I think right now you see a lot of investors investing in really just kind of early stage technology development. We already know that BECCS, biochar, DAC, these are very permanent, scalable solutions that need to be applied to fight climate change right now. And BECCS alone needs to scale between 30 to 780 billion tons within the century if we have any chance at all to meet the 1.5 degree target. So, and this is just BECCS. I mean, DAC and biochar and others have similar targets within the IPCC as well. But I would say really follow the science if you're investing in this space.
I think that's great advice, not to follow the hype or the trend. Yep. Not only that, but also looking at what is really working, what is really important, what is really crucial for the sustainable future, right? And then to follow that. Thank you for your ideas. Thank you for sharing your journey. We have some time for the questions, and I think that's a great great experts to ask. So yeah.
On? Yep. Thank you for the excellent panel. I have a question about the title also of the panel. And could you maybe share some thoughts about the topic of permanence? Because if I capture carbon and I utilize it, for example, in Coca-Cola, it has a permanence of days. But if you integrate it with building structures, it can exceed even timber buildings, right? So what is the economic value of permanence, and how does it relate to the effectiveness of current policies?
I'd be happy to take this one. So I think right now what you can see in the carbon removal markets is that there is a shift towards willingness to buy and also the price point for permanence. It's kind of like if you compare, would you rather eat at McDonald's or a fine dining restaurant? You know that the fine dining restaurant is of higher quality, so you're willing to pay for it. So I think that's really important to note, that the industry is shifting more and more towards durable, permanent carbon removal. When it comes to utilization, from our perspective, it's not our #1 priority to focus on CO2 utilization. We try to just have this as sort of a redundancy, possible offtake for CO2. Our main focus is actually to store it underground and take advantage of the voluntary carbon market and both regulated incentives.
Maybe one comment about biochar carbon removal with regard to permanence. So there's been a lot of debate over the last few years around biochar's permanence, particularly in soils. And what we find is that when we integrate it into concrete, it becomes permanently fixed within the concrete matrix. And so for the lifetime of the building, it remains there and beyond, when it can be recycled and reused. And actually, recent research has suggested that you can compare the properties of biochar when it's produced over 550 degrees to that of inertinite, which is then considered the one permanent carbon source out there in the natural environment. So there's striking similarities between this, what we consider a permanent form of carbon, and biochar itself. So I think that will perhaps answer your question around at least biochar.
Nice one. Vittorio?
Yeah, what I can say is that the mass timber is in the structure is so as a way to store the CO2. But there are some critics that say, yeah, okay, but what happens in 25 years or 50 years when you remove and dismantle the building? And that's another advantage of our technology, that we say we don't recycle the structural elements, we reuse it. So we have prefabricated timber concrete elements that we already show, we have reports to disassemble and reuse to smaller buildings. So that's from our side how we keep the CO trapped over there.
Thank you. I think the question was answered, yeah? Thank you for the question. Any more from the audience? Yeah, we have a question.
Hi, thanks a lot for the panel. I really like that you compared carbon removal to the early area of solar and wind. And I deeply believe also that policies played a crucial role there, especially in Germany when the energy transition was kicked off by the renewable energy law and made the ground for a financial system to build on. And I think that was globally seen also as like a kick-off for energy transition worldwide. Do you see a similar policy or regulatory right now in any country, or do you see it to come in the next 5 years?
Yes, I think the strongest incentives right now are in Canada and the US. So the US has 45Q, which is a tax credit where you can get $85 per ton for every ton of CO2 that you store. For BECCS at least, there are different levels for other technologies. But then also in Canada, you have a percentage of CapEx that's covered when you're developing CCS projects. As well as different sort of offset programs that exist, for example, in Alberta or in British Columbia. And I think the EU is slow to follow, but I think it's definitely coming. You're already seeing in Sweden and other countries similar incentives to get sort of CCS off the ground. And as well as the Net Zero Act in the EU, they're also planning for a goal of injecting over 30 million tons of CO2 in the subsurface within EU borders. So there's a lot of movement here, and I think it's sort of waking up in Europe right now.